Hundreds of Alaska Native and other Native American students lost to the boarding schools that were supposed to provide them an education. Children of all ages from across North America instead leaving their homes and all they knew for forced assimilation, many of them never to return until now. One after another, the grim discoveries at the institutions most recently known as Indian residential schools, dedicated largely to forcefully assimilating their pupils, are growing exponentially. Recently, in a single case, 751 unmarked graves found near the former Maryvale Indian Residential School in Saskatchewan, Canada. Another 189 are said to be here at the United States Industrial School in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, and it is in Carlisle where we pick up with the story of Sophia Tetoff and her final journey home to Alaska.
There is no room to try to deny what has happened, especially with the graves that have been found.
At the United States Indian Industrial School in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, no fewer than 189 graves. Some of them unmarked, most of them holding children that were first taken and then lost.
To find out that there are Alaskans there and that there are 14 Alaskans buried there, our children, was really shocking to me.
Knowing that there are thousands of other children, regardless if they are Alaska Native or not, I feel for all of them and for all of the relatives and family members.
Schools and the churches that supported them now forced to face the facts. As Father John Kudrin will tell you, a tough task, but nothing like the lives these students, like Sophia Tetoff, were forced to live.
We don't need anybody else's good intentions coming in and changing the way that we live. I mean, we've lived here for 10,000 years. We've figured it out. It's only when there is outside interference that we lose our culture, we lose our language, we lose our food systems.
It was in Carlisle that St. Paul Island and Alaska Native Sophia Tetoff, at just 12 years old, was enrolled in July of 1901, according to her student information card, preserved for decades in school records. And it was in Carlisle that she is said to have spent months at a time working in country homes before dying of tuberculosis, known back then as consumption, not even 5 years later. A teen, all alone, only to be buried in the school cemetery, incorrectly identified in name and tribe.
Yeah, we don't know where our children are. Right? Thousands and thousands of children that were stolen. We don't know where they are.
Lauren Peters, a University of California doctoral student specializing in Native American history, would learn more than a century after the girl's death that Tetoff was her grandmother's aunt. Finding her and getting her home to St. Paul Island would become part of Peters' mission.
What I'm trying to do is find our children, all the Alaska Native children. I'm starting with people in my region and trying to find, going through census records and trying to find out where they ended up. If they didn't return home.
This July, more than 115 years after she died, Tetoff would finally make the return journey back to the tiny island where she started. Instead of steamships and trains, this trip took multiple planes, flying from Pittsburgh to Sacramento to Anchorage and then St. Paul, where dozens of residents there showed up for her arrival and a final, formal goodbye. As all of those seeking atonement will tell you, much work remains to be done.
It can, it doesn't heal all of it, but it definitely brings, a type of peace, knowing that we are doing what we can to take care of our people, especially young Sophia Tetoff, who was taken away from her home.
But atop a hill in St. Paul, there now lies the small body of Sophia Tetoff.
Forgiveness is possible, but also with forgiveness, it doesn't happen overnight.
And make her memory to be eternal.
More than a century passed, more than 4,000 miles traveled, but she is finally home. And Lauren Peters mother says she hopes that bringing her great-aunt home will show others that there is a way if they want to reclaim their relatives' remains from Carlisle and other schools too. And there is much, much more to this and to Sophia and the mission of those who helped bring her back to Alaska. Our investigative producer, Kortnie Horazdovsky, has the in-depth version of this story on our website. That's alaskasnewssource.com.